Warning: this episode contains some strong language. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Tales from the Trunk, reading the stories that did make it. I'm Hilary V. Bisnieks. Listeners, I am so excited for this, the spookiest month out of the year, to welcome just absolute queen of screams. You know her already, probably, hopefully. If you don't, get ready for a treat. Caitlin Starling, welcome to the show.
Queen of Screams, really? Well, thank you for having me back.
I don't think I've ever screamed out loud reading any of your stuff, but, I've lost sleep.
Yes!
In
Perfect.
the past.
Goal achieved.
If you have not been listening since the very beginning and heard Caitlin's previous appearance on this show, hopefully you do already know her from, say, The Death of Jane Lawrence, one of my favorite Gothic books of the last decade, or maybe her outstanding Voluminous Dead, which I cannot read at night at all. I tried it once, and it was a bad idea. Just phenomenal horror writer, and dear friend of the show. And here today to talk about Last to Leave the Room.
Yeah, it's the newest full-length novel, since I've got a couple novellas floating out there in the ether as well.
We should mention, of course, we love Neon Hemlock and we love Yellow Jessamine.
And there's going to be a new novella with Neon Hemlock called The Oblivion Bride, which is not horror. For once, I have written something that is not horror. Instead, it is, well, I would call it romance, but it's a little bit too sad to be romance. It has a happy ending, but it's very grief-soaked. I still wrote it. So it's kind of meditative and dark and depressing until it's not anymore. But it's an arranged marriage, age difference, lesbian fantasy novel or novella. So
incredible.
That should be coming out, I think, summer 2024. We haven't locked down a specific date, but I think the plan is summer since it's not a spooky one.
Fantastic. Yeah. Your Neon Hemlock novellas, everybody else's Neon Hemlock novellas, I'm constantly reminded, I have it over on my shelf right over here, of Premee Muhammad's And What Can We Offer You Tonight?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Just incredible.
The anthologies. I've got a short story in The Crawling Moon anthology that's coming up, and it's very gross, horny cannibal vampires.
I'm so here for this.
So, everything's coming up Neon Hemlock.
Yeah. The times that I've been able to read fiction recently that aren't Dracula Daily have mostly been reading things out of Luminescent Machinations, because a short story I can manage sometimes.
Yeah.
Anyway, before we get into the reading, is there anything we need to know about Last to Leave the Room?
So I'm going to start in chapter 2. So I guess there are a couple things you need to know, although most of it gets recapitulated pretty quickly. So Last to Leave the Room is a more or less contemporary, might be, 5 seconds into the future. Never really settled on it.
Mm-hmm. Time is fake. Who cares?
Sci-fi horror with thriller elements. The quick pitch is that it is about an ambitious and callous researcher, Dr. Tamsin Rivers, who is trying to conceal the fact that her research for a tech conglomerate may be causing her entire Californian city to sink into the ground.
Ooh.
And also make her house sink faster than anything else, which is a little bit incriminating. While she's running damage control on that, though, and she's trying to study this issue with her basement, A door appears that wasn't there before, and as she becomes more obsessed with it, one day the door opens and her doppelganger walks out.
Oh my God.
The part that I'm going to read is from before this happens. This is from the damage control part of the book. And she has just discovered, well, she's just publicly announced, not even publicly, she has just had a little shareholder meeting, very closed door at the tech conglomerate, to tell the other departments and her boss, the CEO, what is happening to the city, what she knows, what she has already put in place to control the issue, and where she thinks things might go next. And she thought that went pretty well until she gets a text from Lachlan Woodfield, who is her handler, telling her to meet at this particular cocktail bar for 2 drinks. And that's where we're going to pick up.
Fantastic.
And for any video game, especially JRPG fans in listening, you can just imagine Lachlan as if she is part of the Turks in Final Fantasy VII.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so nice black suit, black gloves, questionable morals. There to fix problems while making other problems.
Yeah.
Perigee is a slick little speakeasy tucked deep in the business district, a few miles from Miraca Dynamics campus. At this time of night, traffic is heavy and walking might have been faster, but Tamsin takes advantage of the delay to apply fresh lipstick and gently tease her hair into something more appropriate for the venue. Appearances are important after all. Summonses from Lachlan Woodfield hold as much weight as a court order. With much swifter censure, she takes them in contempt. She is not precisely a dog on a leash, but obedience is still her best option. A show of humility, followed by acting as she always does, like she deserves to be here, like she knows the rules. Her lips are curling ever so faintly, a predator's smile, as she passes into the air-conditioned cool of an 80-story high-rise. There are no signs, but Tamsin makes her way unerringly to the bank of elevators. She presses the button farthest to the left, which calls only one car. That car feeds all of the businesses in the tower, but it also is the only one that goes down. As the car begins its descent 5 flights into the earth, she reflects on the very real possibility that this office building will soon be having some startling foundation problems. Anybody else might have been too frightened to step in the car in the wake of that evening's announcements. But she knows there's time. Her own labs aren't showing any stress yet, and they're nestled far deeper underground than this little gem. It's the sewer systems that are going to feel the pinch next, according to the projections, and that's still a few weeks off. The elevator comes to a stop. The bar is more Tamsin style than Lachlan's, and more Mr. Thomas's than either. That's the CEO. Deep teal wallpaper and gilded fixtures, a hammered copper bar, and a surfeit of glass and mood lighting. There's a brief moment where Tamsin half expects to see the CEO in the flesh, but when she spots Lachlan, she's alone. On balance, it's probably better that way. Lachlan Woodfield is a tall, broad woman with either a taste or a dress code requirement for tailored black suits and shiny leather brogues, which set off her dark, slick-back hair and her gold-kissed skin to great effect. She's sitting in their usual booth, small and private, and she's still got her gloves on as she idly turns her rocks glass. Condensation beads on her leather-clad fingers. Her eyes have been on Tamsin since the elevator opened, as always. 2 drinks does not mean that Lachlan desires her company, of course. It means Tamsin has earned a dressing down for bypassing Lachlan and Mr. Thomas, springing the problem on them at the same time as everybody else. Whatever Mr. Thomas's opinion on the matter, his feedback is going to be more involved than, here's your funding, enjoy. She steels herself. 2 drinks, and whatever it is will be over. The bar seating is full, as are most of the tables. Tamsin makes her way to their booth, not staring back at Lachlan, but not looking away either. This is always the most awkward part. It's a long walk. And then she's there, slipping into her seat and setting her purse off to one side of the table. Mix Woodfield, Tamsin says, and the greeting loosens her limbs with an imagined hydraulic hiss. Their game is now once more in the active phase, and she knows how to play. They've worked together now for 8 years. At times, they go months between meetings. It depends on Tamsin's current mandate for Mr. Thomas, her general willingness to play by the rules set out for her, and likely the demands of whomever else Lachlan's been assigned to manage. Tamsin has never been able to figure out who those people might be. Dr. Rivers, Lachlan replies, reaching across to take Tamsin's purse and set it in the curve of the bench seat between them both. It's courteous on the surface, but it's really a reminder of how easily Lachlan can cross her boundaries and how little Tamsin can do about it. Manage is the best term she can think of for what Lachlan does, but it's management in the sense of a sheepdog to its flock, not business administration. Lachlan is, above all else, somebody who fixes problems by any means necessary. Tamsin is at risk, always, of becoming that problem. She has a great deal of freedom, a great deal of funding, and a great deal of access to proprietary corporate data. The job plays to her strengths. Back in her academic days, she bypassed the softer sciences to avoid having to comport or edit herself for internal ethical review boards. Not all of what she's asked to do or wants to do is strictly advisable or legal. And that means that for all that she's a jewel in the crown of Nirka's research department, she's also a liability. And she's ambitious. The risk of her straying to a competitor or spilling secrets for a profit is high. Among other things, Lachlan is in her life to make sure she doesn't. It's a fair arrangement. And what have you ordered me? Tamsin asks, crossing her legs, the tip of her shoe very close to Lachlan's knee. They don't touch. This is as much a power play as dragging Herrera into a gatekeeping role in the new emergency project, but Lachlan's answer will also say a great deal about the mood Mr. Thomas is in. A Negroni, Lachlan says, leaning back against the booth, one arm along the top of the cushion. It's not the most aggressive maneuver. It's a drink Lachlan knows Tamsin likes, something Tamsin has ordered for herself in the past. But it is one that lends itself to slow sipping, a shorter leash to keep Tamsin's attention. I apologize for what must have seemed like an end run around proper protocol, Tamsin says. The room is designed to dampen sound, but it's still polite to keep things vague. She drops her gaze to the table for no more than a breath. But in this case, I wanted to start the conversation with a path to a solution instead of an ambiguous problem. Lachlan takes a sip of her drink. You certainly have everybody's attention. I'll be sending over a report of what we know to you in the morning. It will be a very different report than the one she's making available to the team, and Lachlan inclines her head in understanding. The waiter drops off Tamsin's drink along with a variety of olives. Tamsin considers, but doesn't order the fig appetizer. She doesn't remember the last time she ate, but she doesn't want to encourage interruptions either. Besides, she likes olives. She eats 3. When they're alone again, Lachlan says, we're concerned that by creating a larger investigatory body for the problem, we may run into containment issues. Either we expand the scope or somebody else does it for us, Tamsin says. This way we guide the discussion. On the off chance there's a connection, we're already there on the ground. Does that mean you haven't ruled out some causative link with your labs? Lachlan's voice goes a degree colder. It's not an intimidation tactic as much as it is analytical. It still makes Tamsin uneasy. The report is going to cover this exact issue, and yet she still feels pointedly exposed being asked directly. Tamsin eats another olive, then sits back and cradles her drink. You can't prove a negative, Mix Woodfield. Lachlan taps 2 fingers against the table, then knocks back a good third of her drink. She sucks her teeth after, as if searching for patience in her enamel. Please, Dr. Rivers, she says at last. This is not a time to be your iconoclastic self. I need straight answers as you get them, not a miraculous presentation once you have all the grit cleaned away. Tamsin glances to one of the windows, made of a thick, transparent material that isn't entirely glass and can withstand the crush of earth against the walls. Recessed lights illuminate the dirt and rock beyond. And you'll get them. In the report tomorrow, properly encrypted. Trust me that I'm doing the necessary work. A click as Lachlan sets down her glass. I want to hear you say it. That's new. That's galling. Tamsin bites back a starl and takes a 2 large gulp of her own cocktail, then sets it on the table between them so hard it nearly cracks the glass. Calm. Focus. Lachlan is not the enemy. She isn't a friend either, but they ultimately need one another. In another life, they might even have wanted one another. The onset of the issue postdates the beginning of our experiments by a wide margin, she says, picking her words with care. All the drilling was finished up a year ago. All the construction was completed 4 months after. For 8 months, they've been testing and calibrating and trying to work out exactly how the new technology functions and what else it can do, but the first few inches of loss were only measured 2.5 months ago. However, preliminary analysis does show a correlation between the beginning of our active testing cycles and the likely start of the subsidence. It's not a direct 1-to-1, but it is statistically significant. She lets that hang in the air between them, sipping languidly at her Negroni once more. The lack of discernible underlying geologic process is concerning, but we also have no theories as to how data transfer might account for any of what we're seeing. While the timing overlaps, the locations don't, and there's no known mechanism. Her handler is entirely focused on making her feel trapped by the booth at her back. It isn't easy to admit to fault, even knowing this is the safest person she can tell. There's a good chance we won't need to disclose the existence of the labs, she says. I would like to formally request that we continue to run our experiments. We're getting very close to the next phase of testing, and there's still a real possibility that the relationship we're seeing emerge is not causative. We may even be able to better monitor the problem from our vantage point. Lachlan's expression is grim as she spears an olive on a toothpick, pale wood contrasting sharply against her gloves. You have provisional permission to continue on the condition that you report in on a regular basis. Full transparency, Dr. Rivers. Of course. That has always been the deal. Mr. Thomas receives an accurate accounting of her work, no matter the circumstances, and she doesn't have to scrounge for grant money. It's a fair enough trade, and he has yet to hold any failures or missteps against her. You'll be given every resource necessary. You will be given the leadership role in determining Miracle Dynamics' response, as public or private as you prefer it to be. Inside, Tamsin thrills at that. Outside, she quirks one manicured brow. Surprising. The subway lines breaking will cost a lot of money, Dr. Rivers. And a lot of goodwill goes unspoken. Mirica bought the crumbling money pit of San Sirocco's public transit system to allow Tamsin to do her research, but in doing so, they also position themselves as a company dedicated to the public good. If anybody connects Mirica's actions to any of the impending disaster, it's not just Tamsin who will go down for it. They're going to walk this fucking tightrope together. Anything else? Tamsin asks, finishing her drink. One down. Lachlan mirrors her, then meets her gaze placidly. She gestures for the waiter. He arrives quickly. I'll have another old-fashioned, Lachlan says. For her second drink, she's being given a choice. It's a small concession, a show of approval, if not trust. Classic daiquiri, she says. Simple, comforting, entirely the opposite of Lachlan's choice, and quickly drinkable. The waiter leaves. If the two projects begin to conflict, Lachlan says, you are to immediately prioritize the subsidence. How crucial are the underground labs to the actual functioning of the project, beyond the research, day to day? Essential, Tamsin replies. The communications protocol requires the shielding provided by the node depth. It can't be replicated above ground now that you've had a year to test? We can't build something to spec? No. The labs take advantage of the quiet of the deep earth, the lack of particle interference, the vast and empty dense space. It goes beyond the shielding possible with feet of concrete, and it's the only way to have messages mirror instantaneously between rooms miles and miles away, bypassing the limitations of satellites and fiber optic cables and cell towers. She refuses to give up on it, not when the invention of that technology will immortalize her name. Then you need to prepare an exit strategy, Lachlan says. The moment there is any indication that causation is likely, the whole project ends. Her chest tightens. Mix Woodfield, non-negotiable. She has the gall to look apologetic. Tamsin feels sick. Her daiquiri arrives. Is there anything else I need to know? Lachlan prompts when she doesn't reach for it. Tamsin doesn't flinch. She takes her glass, sips, sets it aside. No, she lies. You said I'll have the resources I need to cover all angles on this? Of course. Approval to work off-site? Lachlan's brows rise. Depends. How far off-site? Just from home, away from office politics as needed. It's not her usual mode. She prefers to have an iron grip on her personnel as well as her experiments, but it's a reasonable request. Lachlan would need to have a very good reason to deny her. If you want my full attention, that's the best way to get it. A few days a week where I could focus on the data only. Consider it done. The nausea hasn't let up, but it gentles now. She can do this. She will do this. I'll figure out the causative factors. We're far from running out of options. She smiles and holds out her coupe, clinks it gently against Lachlan's glass. I promise. Lachlan's knee shifts and brushes the spike of Tamsin's heel. Good.
Oh, I'm so excited for this book.
And if your reaction to that is, God damn, Lachlan Woodfield is hot, you are correct.
Oh, I mean, I knew that this was going to be an extremely queer book because you wrote it, but also, like, God damn.
Yeah, and of course, once you throw a doppelganger into the mix, you get the inherent queerness of either wanting to murder or bang yourself, or both. So, that's definitely it.
Incredible. Oh.
There's also some gender stuff, because the doppelganger that comes through Tamsin's mysterious basement door is like a very gentle, soft femme. Whereas Tamsin is like an ice queen femme. But then the dynamics start to shift and change, and I believe it was Isaac Fellman who said it's a deadly game of force femming yourself. So, for everyone who's here for the gender stuff,
I am here for the gender.
Stuff happens.
Oh, wonderful. So, this, of course, is Tales from the Trunk, so I have to ask, is there any part that you're just super sad, had to get left on the cutting room floor, that doesn't give away too much, obviously?
Weirdly, not much got cut out of this. Things got reordered or expanded on, but not really cut. This was written from an outline that I kind of I created it first, talked it over with my editor, and then went from.
Nice.
But in hindsight, I do wish that there was like a scene where Tamsin and her doppelganger made out. I did not put one in. There's a bunch of sexual tension, but I never quite got to the point. Never found an excuse to have them act on it.
Well, I mean,
unless you consider unadvised medical procedures to be acting on it, which for some of my readers, I'm pretty sure you will.
Yeah.
So.
I was gonna say also, fanfic writers, you know what to do here.
You know what to do. They're living in the same house.
They were roommates.
There's a lot of attention paid to their sleeping situation. There's a couple places where there are very exploitable gaps in what I cover of what happened. Some time gaps. So please. Of course I won't look it up.
Right, yeah, no.
I would never do that.
But
definitely not.
That doesn't happen. Oh, that reminds me very strongly of something that an exercise that I did in college in one of my writing classes that was never positioned as you are writing fanfic of this, but in hindsight was exactly that, of taking a short story and then finding a gap in it and inserting, doing a, study the voice, capture the voice, put fanfic in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Which, what a great exercise, and what a great exercise that was not in any way positioned as, oh yeah, you're doing fanfic here.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. That's very exciting to the one, very excited for you that you didn't have to cut very much, because like that's a whole thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can't remember if we talked about this about the Luminous Dead, but I had to cut like the entire original second half of the Luminous Dead. Because my editor wanted a version without the monsters in it. So that, yeah, having been on that side of things, and also Jane Lawrence got revised and revised and remixed and revised and remixed. This was a very straight shot from concept to finished product.
Nice.
I think there was only actually 2 areas of the plot that I ended up changing the order of things and expanding a couple areas. So really, I got off very lightly in this, which was great because it happened. I was writing it at a time in my life where I did not have a lot of spare time to go back and redo parts.
Yeah. Woo. I can imagine how the edits went on Jane Lawrence.
Most of them happened before we sold the book. Most of them was me on my own or me with my agent. But at one point with Jane Lawrence, Augustine had POV chapters.
Oh, wow.
And I thought I was making him more sympathetic and also like making things spookier sooner because he sees things, of course, before Jane does, without giving too much away. But it ended up making him insufferable. It made him unsympathetic because you were like, wow, Augustine, can you shut up? Can you stop whining about your situation? Whereas when we see it with Jane's both anger and empathy, it makes him more interesting, I think.
Yeah.
And also I was majorly, like, I can't remember if I changed anything after seeing the movie A Dark Song, which is a fantastic occult horror film. Or if just seeing it kind of coincided just because of other research I'd been doing. But that also made some changes to the metaphysical side of things.
Nice. I think I read that back to back with Noelle Weir and Steenz's graphic novel Archival Quality, and let me just say, like, choice pairing there. Two extremely good Gothics that are not in conversation with each other, obviously, but are in conversation with what a Gothic is. in a
Yeah.
really great way.
Speaking of great pairings, just as a complete aside, because I'm singing the praises of this book everywhere. Um, for fans of the Luminous Dead, I would strongly suggest you pick up Sarah Lotz's The White Road,
Ooh.
which came out like over a decade before Luminous Dead, and I didn't read it until a couple months ago.
Mm-hmm.
But they're definitely dealing with some of the same concepts of grief and losing a mother and death voyeurism
Oh,
and
wow.
extreme climbing. The entire opening is caving gone wrong, so you will recognize some stuff. We definitely read some of the same sources for our research,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really fantastic. It's a book about a guy who basically is creating content for a website that is very much like ye old rotten.com.
Oh, yep.
Um, you know, shocking photos of in the first case, bodies that have been left in a cave because turns out it's very hard to get people out of a cave if they die in a cave
Mm-hmm. Yep.
without risking other people's lives. So he goes into this cave to get this footage, and things go wrong with the spooky guide that he hired and everything else. And in the wake of stuff that happens there, he ends up being sent by his co-creator of his website to go to Everest to go film some dead bodies there.
Mm-hmm.
And then it overlaps with this narrative of a climber on Everest, and both this guy and this climber, they both feel like they're being followed by someone that they can't see,
Oh.
which they tie to the third man syndrome, which is
Mm-hmm.
a known phenomenon, especially if like you're, say, stranded in Antarctica,
Mm-hmm.
like Shackleton. Sometimes people will report that they are certain that there is another person walking with their party, but that is not there whenever they turn to look at them. In most cases, actually, historically, it's a reassuring feeling,
Mm-hmm.
which good for them. Not sure what their brain chemistry was doing to give them that nice bonus,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not very reassuring in The White Road. But yeah, it just a lot of interesting and unexpected similarities in terms of how people deal with like extreme physical deprivation
Mm-hmm.
and ambition and death and all of that.
Very cool.
Great stuff. Great
Yeah.
stuff.
If you're into that sort of thing, which I am. Um,
And the audiobook is quite good.
oh, nice. I will definitely put that on my never-ending list.
You're welcome.
Very much thank you. Uh, so having covered that the regrets at least about the things that didn't go in, if not the things that got cut, is there any part that without giving too much away, obviously, is there any part that you're just so excited for people to get to in this book?
Pretty much every interaction between Tamsin and Lachlan is just it just vibrates with potential.
Mm-hmm.
In ways that changes throughout the course of the book. I'm really excited for people to get to have run-ins with Lachlan because
Nice.
you're gonna think you know why she's there in the book. Um, but hopefully I can take you by surprise a couple times.
Awesome. I'm really glad that you read chapter 2 of this book so that we know who we should be so excited for, because I am definitely excited.
I mean, that's that, and then Tamsin's doppelganger, who she refers to as Prime,
Mm.
in the mathematical sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Prime is also a very interesting character because, I mentioned that she starts off as a very soft femme version of Tamsin. She's not only like gentle and kind, but she's very trusting, and you're kind of sitting there going, okay, well, what is it
Mm-hmm.
an act? Is it not an act? Because usually in a doppelganger story, the doppelganger is there to show things that the main character is hiding about themselves, like fears that they have, anxieties, crimes that they've committed that they've covered up.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually it's almost like a haunting, or in some other cases, just a really bleak, this person who looks just like you is here to ruin your life.
Oh, yeah.
Like And but like Tamsin already knows that she kind of sucks. Like she knows that she's not a nice person. Um she doesn't care. She's decided to live her life the way she's living her life for very specific reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And screw all y'all, get out of her way. And so I had to find a way to make her doppelganger still scary.
Mm-hmm.
And it couldn't just be that she's exactly like Tamsin. The issue is that I would say if this book had a tagline on the cover, the tagline should be, "Do you trust yourself?"
Mm-hmm.
And Tamsin does not. She would never trust herself. She knows what she's capable of.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had fun playing with that and what exactly is happening with this seemingly trustworthy version of her.
Mm-hmm. Whew. I'm gonna read this book and then I'm gonna reread Gailey's The Echo Wife.
So I read The Echo Wife after writing the first draft of this book. And I was a little bit scared. I was like, oh no, how similar are they going to be? Am I going to have accidentally like cribbed this entire book? They are actually not very similar in many ways, but they definitely are cousins.
Mm-hmm.
Gailey has since read Last to Leave the Room, and we basically just were doing the Spider-Man meme at each other. Because, of course, both books have to deal with scientific ambition
mm-hmm.
and gender performance and what happens when the copy of you is not quite you.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think speaking of books in conversation with each other, that's definitely a double feature that's pretty exciting. I'm very happy that we're linked in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've already covered pretty much your bibliography in terms of what other people should check out from you. Is there anything else that you have forthcoming or recently out of your own work that you want to make our listeners aware of?
So for fans of the Luminous Dead, there is now a short story set just before and concurrent with the Luminous Dead. It's out in Grimdark magazine. It's called Caver Continue, which is actually one of the previous titles that we consider for the Luminous Dead. Don't like you could read it if you haven't read the Luminous Dead, but if you have read it, it's going to be probably a bit more fun. If you remember the Caver previous to Gyre, Eli,
mm-hmm.
it is events from his perspective.
Ooh, very exciting.
And it was a lot of fun to write. It was also very interesting because it covers a lot of the same time span
mm-hmm.
as a whole novel in under 4,000 words. I am not a short story writer by nature. So this was something that I was basically, I got asked if I had wanted to tell any other stories in any of the worlds of my books. And I came up with that one. And then I had the challenge of having to execute it. And same with the short story, the cannibal vampire short story that I have coming out in the Neon Hemlock Crawling Moon anthology.
Mm-hmm.
I had a max word count, and by God, I used all of those words. So both of those I'm very excited about. But Crawling Moon comes out actually same month.
Yep.
It also comes out spooky time October, I think.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Dave timed it for that.
Yeah. And then the Caver Continue story is already out. It was in the July issue of Grimdark magazine.
Fantastic.
I think that covers it because I have another book in process, but it hasn't been officially announced anywhere. So, I could get everyone very excited about it, but then there's nowhere to go for any more information.
Yeah.
And I haven't finished writing it yet, so I don't really want to
also that, yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to curse it accidentally by talking too much about it.
Yeah.
But basically, if you like hospitals,
you have my attention already. I mean,
and
you said
you
were
like
writing
Gothic,
a book, so you had my attention.
Yeah, hospital, Gothic. Let your mind run away with the idea with those two words.
I already have. On the subject of things that we would like our listeners to know about, is there any media in the broader media landscape that you've been especially enjoying recently you'd like folks to know about?
I already talked about The White Road by Sarah Lotz. I am rereading, or I've only read the first half of it, so now I'm rereading and about to embark on the rest of it. The Queen's Thief series by Megan Whalen Turner.
Oh, uh-huh.
If you aren't aware of them, they're fantastic YA, but not written like current YA. They started coming out, I think, in the mid early 2000s, I want to say. If you like it, if you like unreliable narrators, that's the place to go. And this isn't, anything super new. It's kind of everyone talked about it all, for a hot second, and I'm not sure anyone's. I think we're all just waiting for season 2 now. Severance.
Oh,
the TV show Severance on Apple TV. Absolutely fantastic. Very hard to describe, but excellent. And as a shout out to myself, I almost died screaming when Isaac Fellman blurbed Last Leave the Room by calling it "If Shirley Jackson wrote an episode of Severance." The highest praise I could have ever received. Besides a deadly game of force femming each other. That was also fantastic.
Nice. Well, I have some more things to check out. And I think listeners, you probably will as well. Of course, as always, links to all these things will be in the show notes. This being, we're recording in mid-August of 2023. We don't know what October is going to look like, but before we go, Caitlin, where can our listeners find you elsewhere?
Check my website first.
Do that.
CaitlinStarling.com. I am still on the artist formerly known as Twitter.
Yep.
For now.
Unfortunately, yep.
At CSE_Starling. I am still on Instagram at author C the letter Starling. I need to consolidate these and actually have a reasonably predictable naming scheme. And I am on Blue Sky at C the letter Starling.
Fantastic.
.bsky.social. Yeah.
Yep.
But I should come up regardless, anywhere I am. If you search for my name, I should come up. And, I have yet to have a impersonator account, but, just.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen my actual social media, it should be pretty clear when it's me or not.
Yeah. If you need some education about how to deal with doppelgangers, check out Last to Leave the Room.
Maybe. I'm not sure I would recommend Tamsin's approach, but yeah.
If you'd like some information about how not to deal with doppelgangers.
Yeah, there we go.
Well, Caitlin, thank you so much for coming on the show once again. It's been such a delight.
Thank you for having me and letting me go wildly off topic several times.
This is the Wildly Off Topic show. That's what we're here for. You get a couple of artists in a room, they just start talking. Things happen. It's great. Tales from the Trunk is mixed and produced in beautiful Oakland, California. Our theme music is Paper Wings by Lillian Boyd. You can support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/trunkcast. All patrons of the show now get a sticker and logo button, along with show outtakes and other content that can't be found anywhere else. You can maybe still find the show on Twitter at Trunkcast, and I tweet at HBBisnieks. Those usernames are also wildly applicable on most other social platforms. If you like the show, consider taking a moment to rate and review us on your preferred podcast platform. And remember, don't self-reject.